Hello everyone, welcome back to the Inspired Life Vancouver. I'm your host, Zara Durrani. Each week, I'm so excited and honored to bring you inspiring guests who are bound to inspire and empower you and help you live the life of your dreams. This week, I have an amazing guest joining us right now. She is a visionary, a creative powerhouse, and the founder of the Make It Show and the Conscious Lab. She aims to bring communities together, and I had the opportunity to attend one of her events last week called Sip and Sweat. I'm talking about Jenna Herbut. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Zara. So great to be here.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Well, we're so excited, and I love how much work you're doing to bring communities together, to bring inspiring artists, entrepreneurs, and tell me, has this always been the aim to empower business owners, entrepreneurs, and artists?
I do a lot of things for selfish reasons. I mean, I feel it's so important to have community, so I build what I feel is lacking. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess it always has been because it's so much easier when you have like-minded people together than trying to do it by yourself.
And you can go to them as a resource for help. I literally use that word. I say that every guest I bring on the show, it's a selfish thing to get to know them more, to have a little catch up, and perhaps our viewers will find it inspiring as well. And I thought the same of you because I want to get to know you more. I feel you're doing such amazing work with the Make It Show and all the amazing and fantastic events that are taking place at the Conscious Lab. So with everyone, I like to rewind and understand their why. What was the reason? I'm sure there was an inherent purpose of a calling that you must have felt to create the Make It Show, because that started before the Conscious Lab.
Yeah, we've been running Make It since 2008, so it's been 15 years this year. So I have a teenage business. And how Make It got started is I had a line of accessories called booty belts. And you're probably thinking, what the heck is a booty belt? They were these scarf belts that I started designing when I was a university student at the University of Alberta. And after I graduated, I just thought, I am going to do this. This is going to be my career. And my parents are like, really? Really? You're going to do booty belts? Okay. So they were like fairly supportive, and I would sell them to stores. I had them in department stores, boutiques. Like I went pretty far with the booty belts. And then I got really burnt out because I was in my mid-20s, and fashion's a tricky one. Like it seems really fun and glamorous, but keeping up with the trends was tough. So the booty belt was hot for a couple seasons, and then it was harder and harder to sell it into stores. But craft fairs and festivals became my go-to because I could just set up a booth, and I was very good at selling the booty belts because like I had my whole story and I was really passionate. And it didn't take long for me to think, you know what, I think I can create my own craft fair that's a little bit cooler and a little bit hipper, just being in my mid-20s at the time. So our first show, we had DJs, we had a bar, so it was sort of like a party meets craft fair, and it just really caught on pretty quickly, actually.
So 15 years in business, that must have taught you so much. And also, you have given space to so many small businesses, local entrepreneurs. Tell me about that. What does that feel like? Because I'm sure you must get so much amazing feedback.
It's really cool. It's so awesome to see someone with an idea like I was back in the day with my booty belts, and see them actually make it happen and turn that idea into reality. Like that I find so inspiring because, you know, so many folks say like, oh, I have this idea for a business, but they don't actually get started. It's such a brave and bold move to actually do the thing you talk about because it's vulnerable, right? Like you don't know what the response is going to be.
And to say that I don't know something, you know, because I feel like I'll speak for myself. Like I remember earlier on, like 15, 20 years ago, very creatively driven, very much of an artist. However, when it comes to the business side of it, how are we going to monetize this? How are we going to make sure that we bring money in to hire the camera, the editor, the X, Y, Z, all of that? And then to be able to say to someone, listen, I need help.
Yes. Oh, totally. That's the crux point. And you're right. So many creative visionaries are not always as savvy as business, but I feel like that's also a mindset too and a story. We've all heard about the starving artist.
Yeah.
Artists don't make any money. And I feel like that's a perpetual conditioning we get at a very young age. And to break through that can be challenging. But now I feel like we're in a really great point in time where there's so many possibilities. Like things are competitive because people are starting to make their dreams a reality. But I really am inspired by the younger generations that are going for it. Like I feel like we can learn a lot from Gen Z and whatever the generation is before that, because they actually are really brave.
Like we're in the age of TikTok. I was just having this conversation earlier. I love, I opened up my TikTok yesterday and there was this model talking about hormonal dysregulation, how to regulate your nervous system, and these 5 to 10 minute long videos and talking about different supplements, and it's like very heartfelt and people really sharing their own experience.
Yeah.
And I feel that during COVID, during the lockdown, how TikTok came out on the market and people are sharing, like I use it for recipes and workouts and like it, and like you said that this is, I think social media is how we connected. It's such a great space for that. And how fantastic that you're using your own experience from the past and that you have created this platform that you can help other artists, other vendors, small businesses. So tell us about Make It Show for anyone who may not know. It's a fantastic show, but I would love to hear it from you so our audience can find out more about and how we can come check it out this year in its 15th year.
Yeah, of course. So we've really scaled back. COVID was a great pause for me because I got pregnant and I had
Congratulations.
I had my first son, Arlo, and we were running 7 shows a year. So we were doing them in Edmonton and Calgary, and we did 3 in Vancouver, and did holiday in spring, and it was amazing. And it was really, really challenging energetically. But it was like I was on the hamster wheel and it was really hard to get off. So now we're just focused on Vancouver. Once a year, it's in December, and we have about 250 artists and makers that come out. We get so many people supporting. It was wonderful. We paused for 3 years, so we did no show during COVID because just navigating that whole mess, like, oh my goodness, I just thought we're gonna just put a pause until all of this clears, and I'm so grateful I did because we came back last year in 2022 with a bang. It was awesome. So yeah, it's just a great place to find really beautiful handmade items, all made with love. All that we call the makeys, all the vendors, like it's just become like a family. Like it just has such a community feel, and that was something I intentionally did, but also not. Like I just feel like I so wanted that feeling when I was doing the craft fairs back in the day with my booty belts, and I didn't feel I could find it. So we really empower the makeys to get to know one another because it's so important. Like that connection's everything.
And I'm sure they can share tips and tricks and advice to each other that whatever you learned about accounting or social media or working with an influencer or whatever that you're doing. And that's how we grow instead of just gatekeeping. That's a new term I learned from Gen Z.
I like that one.
Instead of just keeping it to yourself, like, sharing that information of what you're learning. And I know I've been to Make It Show before, but I almost came this last fall, winter. Arit invited me.
Oh, yeah.
She's a fantastic jewelry designer and, I love the fact when I'm purchasing something and the person who made it, the creator, because it's this made with so much love and the story behind that I hope more people can support, our local artists, support local businesses because it just goes such a long way instead of just shopping in malls and such.
Totally. And I feel like it's become a real, I don't want to even say trend because I feel like it's here to last because it is that counterweight to buying stuff on Amazon and having it delivered, the next day. I think people really appreciate that story and just that connection that you have when you buy it from the artist or maker.
And it's the human touch, I remember the last time I saw her rape was actually a few months ago. She was doing a market here at the Roundhouse. And just when you go and you meet these individuals and the stories they're telling you and the love they make it with, and you're just like, yes, I want to get it. This would make a fantastic gift for someone whose birthday is in 6 months, in
or
December.
for yourself, maybe,
Lots of times it's for myself, but it's like great gifts. And it's, so when exactly in December is your show?
It is December 7th to 10th.
Wonderful. So just in time for the holidays.
Just in time.
So Conscious Lab. That's a shift from the Make It show. Tell us about the Conscious Lab. Tell us about this space, beautiful space that I got to experience this fantastic event last week, Sip and Sweat. Tell us about the concept behind the space and what inspired you to start the Conscious Lab.
Again, for selfish reasons. I love spirituality, and I've been on a spiritual path for a long, long time. And I really wanted to create a space that felt very energetically safe and very clean. And there wasn't really anything like that in Vancouver at the time. And it started out as the office for Make It. Like I had my team work out of it. And we also ran community events for the Makeys. And it's really only been in the past year, I would say, that it started to pop off. And people are talking about consciousness and they're interested in meditation and breath work. I host a lot of corporate retreats. Weddings have been a big part of it, kind of anything and everything. So I just feel so blessed to be able to have this space because I get so much out of it too. And just the people that walk in, it's pretty magical. And
you're doing some events there yourself, as well as like my friends who I brought to your event last week. It was the launch of this mocktail Olay brand. Yeah, my brothers started Olay. We actually founded Make It together as well. So we've worked in parallel for a long time. Oh, how lovely. And we had this fantastic sweat session. So I like that it's called Sip and Sweat. Oh, we earned that sweat. And I loved the sound bath experience. And that's what my friends were talking about. Oh, great. As we were walking out, they were like, we love the sound bath. Oh, good. Okay. So that's really awesome to hear. Do you do those events yourself, like just for sound bath? I just love the bowls. I've been to a lot of sound bath events, and I just find the bowls so mesmerizing because they're made from crystal quartz, and it's the vibration that happens, and it resonates in your body, and it aligns with your chakras. So there's one for each note. And I just bought some, and I've just been dabbling. So it feels great to hear that it was an enjoyable experience because I love how it sounds, and it's really nice to hear that others do as well. That it's landing. Yeah. My last sound bath experience was in Hawaii on a full moon. Oh, amazing. And it was during my cycle, and and I think with the sound bath, it's also very important the space you're in because of the way the energies are moving through your body. Yeah. For me, it was like I could feel every cell of my being. Wow. It was definitely huge emotional cleansing, like, to be honest, very like overwhelming in the best way possible. It totally can be. Because you can, but I think the space that you're in, from what I was told, like the last place that I did, that the corners of the room and the wood, and the resonance is there for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think it was Einstein that said that vibrational medicine will be the future. Really? Which is really interesting because when you think about from a metaphysical standpoint, like we're all just vibrating cells. And maybe not to go too down the rabbit hole, but it is so interesting to think about that resonance and what would resonate with you. So yeah, that's really cool to hear. That's fantastic. And you're doing some cold plunge events there. And yeah, we got the cold plunge crew. They set up their baths outside. So yeah, it's really fun, and to see what people are attracted to. And I feel like coming out of COVID, like there's a lot of healing that needs to be done. And it feels like folks are really interested in almost these hybrid events, like a little bit of this and a little bit of this and a little bit of this all blended together. So I love beautiful. That. I think it's fantastic. So I used to teach yoga back in the day. Oh, okay. And I feel this is like over 10 years ago. From then to now, consciousness and working on yourself, and the interview we had with the guest before, used to be in a rock band, was a professional boxer, now a very, very successful actor, talking about therapy, you know? And I was just saying to my co-producer how much I love that we're hearing this even from men.
Yes.
Doing the inner work, you know, not just in the chasing the success, the outer success,
right.
but places like yours, like the Conscious Lab, because obviously you made an internal decision of calling it the Conscious Lab, and now you're attracting those kinds of people and events that are doing those events. So is Conscious Lab mostly for events that are for external events, or are you doing events yourself there as well?
A little bit of both. Yeah. I mean, I got so many rentals. It's pretty overwhelming. Like, we're booked almost all summer long with different things, because especially now with a lot of teams being remote, like they'll come together for the first time in real life. So it's pretty special to hold space in that way. But yeah, I have a long-term vision to build like an entrepreneurial, almost like a Soho house, but more for healing and wellness.
I love that.
So where, you know, leaders and big thinkers can come and share ideas and collaborate, because I feel like collaboration is what is so needed right now, especially for individuals. I think we're shifting out of that individualistic mindset to the collective. And that's really the only way forward, or at least I believe it's the only way forward.
You know, I should have had your book sitting right here. I found so many amazing. Jenna has written this book. It is fantastic, and it's so inspiring, and there are so many bits in there I want to highlight. Until attending your event, I had no idea you had written this book. I found it truly, truly inspiring. Tell me about, when did you write the book and what inspired? Obviously, I'm sure the inspiration is like all these years of doing business and working with these artists.
Right.
But I found it very, as I was just scanning through it, I just opened the middle of the book. I often like to do that.
Yeah.
And I read a line, and now I can't quite remember exactly what it was, but it was about taking risks and not knowing what you're gonna do, like on your 100th try, or what's gonna happen down the line, but starting today. Because if you let your fear hold you back, because for a lot of people, like with ideas like you were mentioning, a lot of artists, a lot of entrepreneurs, or want to be entrepreneurs, you know, we can hold ourselves back. I know I have in the past.
Right.
You know, like, had we not gotten ahead with putting the idea for this show, it would just be an idea.
For sure. And so many ideas live within. And executing on every single idea is maybe not realistic, because I've got a million ideas all at once. But those ones that really feel alive. One of my teachers, her name is Susie Batiste, and she's a founder of Poopery.
Oh my God,
and she did this really cool thing in her home. She lives in this super cool, like, converted church house in Dallas. So there's probably about 40 of us that went down. And
is that the trip you took recently?
Yeah. It was in it was in early May, and she's all about like resonance and dissonance. And if something feels really resonant, it feels like aliveness in your body, and those are the ideas to go for, instead of using your mind. Like, really allow the somatic reaction to guide you forward. And that's a different way than I was taught in business school, like 20 years ago. It's been a while. But this new language that we're now using is really transforming the way people are creating. It's quite interesting.
What comes to me is, like, I was speaking to a friend of mine who's in Germany, and they're producing a new app, but they have all this experience with creating TV shows, reality shows, and talking about how, as women, we've worked in this entertainment world, and other, you know, also as producers, in a very masculine way. But we're women, and we have this, our energies are different, and the way, and especially the hours that you work and just go. So what you're saying, that how something is resonating within you, how is it making your heart feel? How is it making your belly? It's just a different way of living and being.
It's getting out of your head, which can feel so terrifying if you're used to, because most people walk around, I mean, it's evident when you're walking the streets of Vancouver, are living from like their head up. They're so caught up in in the digital world, like we're now living simultaneously in two different realities, which for better or for worse, is what it is. Like you mentioned TikTok. I have yet to really venture into TikTok land, but
good for you.
Yeah, you know,
better than me.
Having a 2-year-old, I just can't. Like it's yeah, but it's not a bad thing. It's a tool, but I feel like these tools are very alluring, and you see who's behind these tools, and our attention really now and our focus is our most valuable resource.
That is so true.
It's the most limited one.
Completely. And one of the things I find very valuable, if you sit down with a friend, you turn your phone upside down or you just put it away.
If you're a good friend, yes.
Yes.
Not everyone does that. But.
Which can be so difficult, you know? And I find that
Right.
so truly very attractive, which is very much about being present and in the moment. Now, going back to your book, which I found, I love the way you've written it.
Oh, thank you.
I want to talk about the inspiration behind the book. So many good points in there that I wanted to highlight. I love the way you've written the book because it's easy to read and you have these amazing quotations that jump up. For me, with books like that, I love just opening and being like, okay, what jumps at me? Yeah. And what I was mentioning earlier is I love the fact that you mentioned that if you have an idea, you have to go for it. So tell me about the inspiration behind the book, and when did you write the book, and what was the process like?
I've always wanted to write a book just for a personal goal. I just thought it would be something that would really focus my attention. I've always loved to write. So I started writing it, would have been probably 2016, because I have so many great stories from the Make It show. I just worked with so many incredible artists and makers. And I wanted to create a book that would have really helped me 10 years ago or 15, 20 years ago when I was first starting, because it didn't feel like that lens was really shared that much. So I had the pleasure and the privilege of writing a big chunk of it in Bali, which I highly recommend doing if you get the opportunity.
How inspiring.
Oh, so nice.
It's like eat,
so beautiful.
Play, read, write.
Oh yeah. Love, yeah, totally. And it's just so lovely because I could really focus my attention, and I feel like the Bali vibes really were so inspiring as well. So it took a couple years to write, and I did some interviews with different makers in the community as well, which added a lot of great context to the book too, because I personally learned so much from stories. Because all the information, like I really appreciate your positive feedback, but you know, nowadays the content is pretty easily accessible, but actually hearing someone's story of how they made it happen, I find very inspiring.
So it sounds like that's really like your mission and vision in life.
To learn from others?
Yeah. But also to give people a platform.
It seems to work out that way, at least. I just never know what's going to happen. I really try and detach myself. I haven't always been like this, but you were talking about the feminine and masculine energy. Like, I feel like there's so much that comes through us. And a lot of the stuff that I've created hasn't always been like me steering the bus. Like even Conscious Lab is very serendipitous. It was my friend's space. I came to see her one day and I just fell in love with it. And she was trying to get out of her lease and it all just happened. And now my neighbor's moving out, so I'm going to take over the whole floor, so I'll have more space. So I feel like the entrepreneurial story, and I've always been so fascinated by the cross section between entrepreneurship and spirituality, because I feel like entrepreneurship really is like a spiritual journey in the sense that you have to grow yourself in order to grow your business. There's no other way, because if you're not growing, then your business is never going to grow. It's probably going to stagnate and you're probably going to end up losing it, because there's so much growth that happens.
Completely. And also having that trust and faith, like whatever it is that you believe in, that you're going to be provided for as well. And another guest was saying earlier is saying yes to things. And sometimes they will turn out to be just lessons. But lessons are fantastic. And other times you're just in awe. A friend of mine who we brought on as a guest, they were saying they said yes to a project during COVID, during lockdown, when no one was allowed to go outside. They filmed the whole movie on their phones and via Zoom.
Wow.
And then after they were finished filming, Anthony Hopkins was attached to the project.
Wow.
My friend was like, I could have said no. Now this project is moving to Egypt, Jordan, and Antarctica.
Amazing.
Just by saying yes.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
And it's amazing. Like, so I moved to Paris before COVID. I was living there for 2 years, not speaking French because everyone's like, what? You were crazy. And I'm sure you've read the book, The Alchemist.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I wanted to use that as a test of who I am and the whole law of attraction.
Wow, that's amazing.
I'm going to just put myself out there in the universe and see what happens.
Yeah.
We'll try this for 6 months, maybe 9 months max. I ended up staying there for 2 years and see what I will get back.
That's amazing.
You know, and I think it's that sometimes you have to be, another guest on the show on Inspired Life was saying, you have to be a bit delusional. You have to, what do you think as an entrepreneur in your life? Like, how has that been true? Because sometimes only you're the one who sees the vision.
That's
and
true.
It may not even exist.
Well, you could argue it's all an illusion, I guess.
Yeah.
And even reality, like really what is reality? It's all just our perception, our lenses that we're seeing it. So I feel like entrepreneurship is having that vision and being very clear and very committed to it and allowing that excitement to come in. And that's what attracts others to the idea and the vision, because it's impossible to do it by yourself. It just is. Like, to a certain point, there's no way. So you bring in others by sharing that light and that vision, and the more you're able to tap into that. That's why I'm reading this book called 10X is Easier Than 2X. So it's saying how 2X requires grit, force, working hard, but 10X, like if you're to think about 10X in your health, in your career, in your, love life, all the areas, it's quite overwhelming. But it's that whole saying, if you shoot for the moon, you'll end up among the stars. And the 10X vision actually requires you to work less because you're not doing all the busybody work. So I've been really leaning into that. And it's pretty fun to dream on that scale, because even looking around Vancouver, like we're looking to move sooner rather than later, and it's like, wow, 10xing our place. That's pretty nice. Like but that requires some courage to dream that big. I feel, especially for women.
100%. I know you've mentioned a few tips already, but I would love to hear some advice from you that you would like to give to new entrepreneurs, like whether it's someone who's starting their own jewelry line or thinking of, starting a side hustle, as we call it these days. Yeah. What advice or tips that you would give them?
So many. I really feel trying to convince others of your vision isn't a good idea. So be careful who you share it with. Make sure it comes, especially when that idea is really small and fragile. Maybe don't tell anybody. I feel like we have this need almost, I'm definitely guilty of getting permission and approval from others. Give yourself that approval and that permission. So keep it on the DL. Yeah, it doesn't, it's your journey. Yeah. And so keep it internal. Until you start to get some traction, then it's fun to tell others because they cheer you on.
Because what if they persuade you to not do it or say something like...
Totally, it's so damaging.
Yeah, because I think that had I told my Paris decision to some of my friends here locally, I didn't intentionally because I had a feeling that someone may try to dissuade me from making that decision because they'd be like, do you have a job lined up there? I didn't.
Yeah. But where are you going to live? How are you going to learn the language?
Yes. Like, what are you doing? And then you start logically thinking.
Totally. Because our friends and family usually want to keep us safe. And the safest thing to do is to stay the same, to stay small and stay the same. It's never safer to go big. It just isn't. Or our perception of what safety is. I would say another piece of advice, I'm trying to channel back to when I first started the Booty Belts back in the day. It doesn't matter that you don't know all the things. it all works out if you just keep going forward. I remember that scene in Indiana Jones where there's no bridge and he's like, how am I going to cross? And then he throws a little sand and takes one step forward, and eventually the bridge starts to come into formation. It's a lot like that. Mm-hmm. I really feel so much of my life has been luck, but also being prepared. I know Oprah has a really eloquent saying, it's when opportunity meets preparedness or something like that. Preparation, yeah. Yes. That's where the magic really happens. Mm. And inspiration can come from anywhere. Connection can come from anywhere. Someone sitting next to you on an airplane, someone next to you in line at the grocery store. So I would suggest keeping your little earbuds out and paying attention to the world, smiling at a stranger, just evoking conversation naturally can be truly incredible.
That is so, so well said. It's interesting. I was walking Loki the other day, and this gentleman just wanted to say hi to Loki. I think he was with his boyfriend, and we got to talking. Next thing you know, the other individual's visiting from Dubai, and they have another friend coming, and now we're all going for coffee. But fun. Just being open to the world, and I feel like
open to the world.
A lot of those connections happen when you walk with that energy of being open. Now, keep in mind, I love listening to a good podcast when I'm walking, or even just music.
And that's okay, yeah.
Yet at the same time, like whether you're smiling at a stranger or... I remember, now I keep talking about Paris on the show. Yeah. I remember coming back from Paris on the flight. I'd heard just the day before about this working holiday visa, and I knew all of a sudden the time stopped, and I knew this is a crossroads. Either I was going to do the safe thing, stay in Canada, or I was going to sell everything and move here. I somehow met this photographer who was a friend of a friend's. We were supposed to meet in London. It didn't happen. He was in Paris, supposed to meet for 1 hour coffee. We ended up spending the whole day together, walking around the streets of Paris. It was my last day there, and talking about why I should move here. Came back here. On the plane ride was sitting next to me this gentleman who had just lost his wife, and he said to me, "Listen, kid, don't wait till you're 75 to see the world.
Wow.
Go to Paris, sell everything." And then I came back to Vancouver. I was sitting at Nuba, these two ladies in their 60s. Everyone, it was just like, if we want to talk about energy and spirituality, I felt like everything, and these were strangers, and these were people who had lived their lives. And beautiful. I can also connect to the fact of, like protecting your vision. I would love to hear, other than that, that's great advice. What do you think, what is the number one thing that you have learned as an entrepreneur? That, the advice that you would tell your younger self. The one thing that you know today, being a mom, being an entrepreneur, the owner of Make It show, writing Make It Happen book, and Conscious Lab. The one thing that you have learned.
It's all the story we tell ourselves. Like, really. Reality is just what we can tell ourselves it's going to be hard. We can tell ourselves it's going to be miserable. We can tell ourselves it's going to be fun and joyful. It's all based on what, like, your narration inside is what's creating the outside. So be careful on your narration, or be conscious of it.
Is that something you've had to do work on, or have you always been? I don't know. I mean, there's
every
people.
Day, Zara,
there's
every
people.
Day.
I'm not. I have to. You'll see sticky notes on my fridge where it's like affirmations to myself.
Yes.
I've had mirrors full of sticky notes where, because I think with media and like in our age, like when we grew up, like all the messages around beauty and this and that, and what is success, what that means, and all of that. So what does that look like for you? Because earlier you were saying being an entrepreneur is a very spiritual path, and I completely relate, because I think it forces you to also trust in the forces of the universe. It forces you to trust, and then also going inward. And then from that heart place, heart-centeredness, connecting to people and seeing how we can be of service, but also give and receive. Receive.
Yeah, that can be a really hard one, especially for women. Yeah, the mantra I always say is trust and surrender. Trust and surrender. Trust and surrender. Yeah, that surrendering part. I feel like the surrendering and the receiving are the same side of the coin, right? Because that like leaning back, because the energy of the entrepreneur is like usually very forward thinking and very direct. So taking your foot off the gas can feel very counterproductive and is not something our society has conditioned us to believe or feel is a valuable thing to do. So yeah, it's reconditioning yourself all the time.
And it's sounding like you were mentioning that you work with the founder of Potpourri as they're your mentor.
Yeah.
Is mentorship something that you really encourage the artists that you work with?
Yeah, I feel having a mentor can be really, really valuable. Absolutely, because you see someone who's walked the path. And for Susie, she's really fascinating to me because she grew up in complete poverty. She grew up in a trailer park in Arkansas and has become one of the wealthiest, most successful female entrepreneurs in America. It's like, how does one do that? It's fascinating to me.
And it's a lot of inner shift. I was listening to an entrepreneur on YouTube, and they were talking about the container. It's almost like you have to let go of your old container, your old story, and trust that you belong in this container, and especially if it's part of our childhood and you know, all those beliefs that we have around money and like what does it mean to be an artist.
Totally.
I picked up an article, I think it was in Forbes. Influencers are making more, content creators are making more, if not equal to lawyers these days.
Oh, wow. Huh.
You know, that just like the whole idea of like, oh, what do you do? Like you're doing
That's
this
so
little
interesting.
Instagram or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, because I think people can still have judgment towards that. And I do a lot of content creation work, and we will be having on our show some content creators who are mothers, and they just happen to get into it.
Right.
Now this is how they earn their living.
Huge business. Huge business. Yeah, it's become so mainstream. It's how, well, we're living from our phones. So yeah, it makes sense. I mean, the influence thing, I feel like there's two types of influence. It's real life influence and social media influence. And I really believe the best thing you can do is build a reputation. And that reputation will take you so much further than likes
just a picture.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because that reputation is people who actually value you and know you and will stand behind you. And you can be popular on social media one day, as we've seen, and not so popular if you say the wrong thing in the wrong time. Anyways, you know, it's a whole rabbit hole in itself, isn't it? But I feel like right now we're so in it. It's almost like when everyone was smoking cigarettes in doctors' offices and on airplanes and giving birth, you know, we thought that was a great idea. There was nothing societally wrong about that. And now we're looking back and like, holy shit, like that's, how could anyone think smoking was a good thing? I sort of feel we're kind of in that period right now with social media, but we don't quite know. But I feel like now some alarm bells, when you think about mental health, and especially, you know, the younger generation, those alarm bells are starting to sound. And I think some people are starting to figure it out. But yeah.
Everything in moderation.
Totally.
You know,
it's a fantastic tool. I mean, with Make It, we grew so much of our marketing was totally through social media for Conscious Lab as well. But are you using the tool, or is the tool using you?
If you're stuck on your phone, or if you're just so obsessed or focused on, you know, like who's commenting, liking, and, you know, and I will say, like, there's times when there's like a paid sponsored ad that I'm doing, not like a post that I'm doing, and it's a product. I don't work with clients that I'm not aligning with.
Right.
A lot of them are wellness brands, but checking to see, oh, people are, and Emrata, like I was listening to her book, and she mentions, like, you know, constantly doing the Instagram. And I was like, yes, I'm guilty of that.
Yeah.
And before, perhaps I wouldn't have shared it, but it's like, yes. Yet at the same time, like on Saturday or Sunday, especially, we're filming weekly right now, noticing I'm doing all this energy output. I need time to be in here.
Right.
To be quiet, to light my incense and sage and journal and meditate and whatever that means, to go for walks in the forest, to go work out, to connect to here, because I can't be 100% with you during our almost an hour long interview if I'm not giving that to myself.
Yeah, totally.
Versus if I'm just living that online life, what you're saying is, you know, something that was coming to me, I'm not sure if you've thought of this, you were mentioning earlier, I'm sure you've already thought of this. I love the idea of like all these entrepreneurs and you perhaps handpicking or bringing some of your mentors in and like a conscious talks.
Yeah.
You know, I feel you're very inspiring. I loved your book. I, you know, gone through it a little bit, and once I find it, it's in my home somewhere. My dog's probably posted somewhere. But so many fantastic points that I found very personal. You know, you shared these personal stories and talking about fear, talking about taking risks, and life is a big risk.
Yeah.
You know, but we forget that. I say this out loud, but we forget it.
It's a risk and also quite a gift.
Yeah. But I mean, because sometimes, for example, during COVID, I had a day job, and I was contemplating between leaving the day job, being full freelance, and you know what a risk that can be, Vancouver. Yet at the same time, the conversation I had with myself is after turning the big 4-0, deciding, is this the path you are on?
Right.
You know, how do you want to live your life?
What year were you born?
82.
I'm 81. Yeah, so I hear you. I feel like the 40s are a really amazing time because, I mean, we've had some life experience. We've done some things. We've gone traveling. Like, we've probably had several partners. Like, there's a lot of life, and yet we're relatively young and hopefully healthy and all of that. So I'm actually quite enjoying it.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic, and it's owning that and like digging in, and that's what I love about like the word risk. It's like inside of us, even our bodies and our nervous system wants to keep us safe. Yet at the same time, like in Hawaii, I went skydiving 2 years ago.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
So, you know, at first I was like, no, I'm just going to do the 30-second free fall or 20-second, whatever it was. But I ended up doing the 90-second free fall.
You fell for 90 seconds?
But the free fall. Okay. And then you're 10,000 feet high.
Yeah.
And I thought with me going in last I don't know why I thought it would mean that I would be the last to come out, but you're sitting on the edge. So I was the first to go out.
Oh my God.
Days after I was high, yet at the same, like, you know, from the whole experience, but it changes your everything of like life and taking risks in life.
Oh yeah.
And that everything that you're afraid of, to go lean in. You know what is that book called by an amazing Sharon someone?
I think it's called Lean In.
Yes, to lean into your fear, whatever that is, because you're afraid, because you need to learn something from that. What inspires you in life?
Oh, my son, he's just amazing. Just to see that life force energy at that stage is so cool. Yeah, I feel very inspired. And also just to live, you know, to shoot a little bit higher and to want more, because it's not just for me anymore, it's for my family.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
We love calling Vancouver home, and the show is Inspired Life Vancouver. Is there a particular spot in Vancouver you like to go to get inspired?
Oh, wow. Well, other than Conscious Lab, I still, every time I walk in, I'm like, just feels so good on my soul.
It is a great spot. I loved it there.
Thank you. I'm just looking out. I mean, going to the beach, I love like Third Beach. It feels kind of secluded. Actually, there's a beautiful forest right behind the Hollow Tree in Stanley Park that I've discovered recently. And you walk in and it's just like, whoa. And it's just so amazing how it's right in the city. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel very blessed to live here, especially in the summertime.
We can just walk on over.
I know, it's great. So great.
But I think in Stanley Park there, even when it's raining, there's so many beautiful, stunning trees.
Yeah.
You're fine. Like,
totally.
Yeah.
So
well,
great.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, for making the time. I know I can talk to you for hours.
I'm sure it'll be
about
continued.
Spirituality, the universe, and laws of physics, and what it's like being an entrepreneur. Congratulations on your son and everything that you're doing. I'm so happy we connected.
Likewise, this is so fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and do let us know when you're doing more events at Conscious Lab.
Will do. Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so much.